"You are an embarrassment to this family. Pack your things and get out of my house." Those words didn't break me. They set me free. Because what my father didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the daughter they were throwing out onto the street had quietly built a $31 million empire right under their roof. Stay with me until the end. Because the look on their faces, absolutely priceless. My name is Maya. At 24 years old, I had become the family's biggest disappointment, or at least, that's what they believed. Growing up, our household ran on a single currency: prestige. My parents didn't measure love in hugs or conversations. They measured it in degrees, titles, and the names of institutions stamped in your resume. My older brother Tristan had fed that hunger perfectly. Fresh out of an elite Ivy League master's program, he walked through the house like royalty, and our parents let him. Every room he entered lit up with their pride. Then there was me. I made a choice at 18 that my family treated like a betrayal. I skipped college entirely. No campus tours, no orientation week, no carefully framed diploma to hang on the wall. Instead, I disappeared into my laptop hours that stretched into days, days that bled into years. To them, I was wasting away. To me, I was just getting started. They never asked what I was actually doing in that corner. They assumed they already knew, nothing valuable, nothing worthy of their dinner table conversations. I let them believe that. I kept me finances locked behind a wall of silence and a shell company name they'd never recognize. Not out of shame, but out of strategy. And survival. The breaking point arrived on an ordinary Tuesday evening, dressed up as a family dinner. Tristan had just landed his first corporate job, an entry-level position that my parents were celebrating as though he'd been elected to lead a nation. The dining room buzzed with their delight. Wine was poured. Compliments flowed. And then, right on schedule, the spotlight swiveled toward me, only this time it wasn't warm. It was a searchlight. My father set down his glass with a slow, deliberate click. "Maya, your brother is building a real future." "What exactly are you doing with your life?" My mother didn't miss a beat. "We've been patient long enough. If you can't show us proof of a real income and a real career, you have no business living under this roof." They wanted me to crack open my bank statements right there at the dinner table, to justify myself, to beg for approval. I looked at both of them and quietly said no. That silence detonated like a grenade. My father's face flushed crimson. He rose from his chair, slammed both fists on the table hard enough to rattle every piece of silverware, and jabbed a shaking finger toward the front door. "Get out," he thundered. "You ungrateful, uneducated nobody. Pack your bags right now." Tristan didn't defend me. He just leaned back on the couch and smirked, arms crossed like he was watching a show they expected tears, pleading. A desperate scramble for mercy. Instead, I stood up slowly, looked my father directly in the eyes, and said 2 words, "Okay." "Fine." The room went still. I walked upstairs, zipped up one suitcase, and left without looking back. Before I tell you where that cab took me, I want to stop for just a second. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who was supposed to believe in you, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story is reaching. Now, let's get back to it. The next morning, I was gone before dawn. My family watched from behind the kitchen window as I loaded my suitcase into the back of a cab, their faces set in that particular expression of cold, satisfied certainty. They were sure they knew what came next for me. Struggle, failure, regret. The cab drove me to a luxury penthouse in the heart of the city, one I had purchased, in cash, 5 months earlier. As the private elevator opened directly into my home, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. And then I got back to work. Here's what my family never bothered to discover. At 19, I had identified a massive blind spot in the e-commerce logistics industry. Most mid-sized online brands were bleeding money because of chaotic, inefficient supply chains, and nobody had built a clean, scalable solution for them. I did. I spent 18 months coding a platform that automated the entire tracking and fulfillment process, end to end. No prestigious degree. No networking events. Just obsession, code, and coffee at 3 in the morning. Within 2 years, my platform was the backbone of thousands of digital storefronts across 4 continents. I reinvested every dollar of early profit into acquiring a portfolio of high-performing digital brands, all quietly tucked inside a holding company that bore no connection to my name. By the night my father called me an uneducated nobody across the dinner table, my automate systems were generating $31 million in annual revenue. I wore unremarkable clothes, drove a forgettable car, stayed completely off local business news. Because I always knew if they found out, they would immediately try to insert themselves, to claim credit, to extract value from something they had mocked and dismissed for years. Now none of that mattered. The door had closed, and I was finally free. 3 weeks of silence passed. Then my phone erupted, 14 missed calls from my mother, a flood of long, frantic messages from my father. I let them stack up for a while before finally picking up. The voice on the other end of the line was unrecognizable. The man who had bellowed at me across the dinner table, who had pointed at the door with a trembling, furious finger, was gone. In his place was someone broken, desperate, and very afraid. "Maya, please don't hang up. We need you." "We're in serious trouble." Story unraveled slowly, but the picture it painted was devastating. My father's consulting firm had been hemorrhaging money for nearly a year, buried in a series of catastrophic investments. They had placed all their remaining hope on Tristan, the golden son, the chosen one, to salvage a critical corporate account. Tristan had failed completely. The client walked. The firm was now facing immediate bankruptcy, legal exposure, and the imminent foreclosure of the family home. My mother's voice cracked over the speakerphone. "We've called everyone, Maya. The banks won't help us. We don't know what else to do. We're so sorry for what we said. We were just stressed." They still had no idea about my wealth. They were calling every contact they could remember, hoping I'd stumbled into some minor connection, a friend's business, a freelance gig, anything. They were grasping at threads. I told them quietly to arrange a meeting with their primary venture capital prospect and ended the call. The following Monday, my family walked into a sleek, glass-walled corporate office downtown, the kind of space that signals. Immediately, that someone very serious operates here, they looked hollow. My father tugged nervously at his tie. Tristan clutched a thick folder of financial documents with both hands, his knuckles pale. Their attorney sat beside them, scanning bankruptcy paperwork with the expression of a man attending a funeral. "If whoever owns this firm doesn't agree to fund us today," my father whispered, "we are finished." Boardroom door opened. I walked in wearing a tailored charcoal suit, flanked by 2 senior corporate attorneys. I took that chair at the head of the table, set down my leather portfolio, and looked across at them. The silence was total. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Tristan made a sound somewhere between a gasp and "oured" and couldn't finish it. My father rose halfway from his chair before his legs seemed to give out. He sank back down, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, horror. Their attorney looked at the corporate registration documents, saw my name and signature as sole owner and CEO, and went completely pale. The uneducated nobody they had discarded 3 weeks ago was the only person in the world who could save them. My father broke first. He stumbled over words, tears streaming, apologies pouring out faster than they could form properly. Tristan wept openly, reaching across the table, invoking family, invoking blood. I looked at them without anger, without satisfaction, with something much quieter clarity. I signed the papers, but not to rescue them. I purchased their failing firm at a steep discount, specifically to protect the hundreds of ordinary employees who had nothing to do with any of this. People with families and mortgages and lives that deserved better than to be casualties of someone else's arrogance. As for my parents and Tristan, I removed them from every executive role. I left them to answer for their own decisions, legally, financially, and personally. And now I want to ask you something. You followed this story all the way to the end. You know exactly what was said to me, what was done to me, and what I chose to do when I finally held all the cards. So tell me honestly, what would you have done? Would you have extended a hand to the people who pushed you down? Or would you have walked away and let them face what they created? There's no wrong answer. But I want to hear yours. Leave it in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story.